It was on the House floor.
On the House, okay,
yeah,
I'm seeing
November 6th.
on the House
Wow.
on the House floor. He offered this prayer, and he said, "quote." As legislation on taxes continues to be debated this week and next, may all members be mindful that the institutions and structures of our great nation guarantee the opportunities that have allowed some to achieve great success while others continue to struggle. May their efforts these days guarantee that they're not winners and losers under new tax laws, but benefits balanced and shared by all Americans. Now, what's wrong with that? If that's all it was, I'm furious.
Yeah.
I don't think that can't be all there was, because ultimately
it might be. I mean, it's the Trump administration.
Paul Ryan had stated publicly in the media that he and he's not the only one, said that a lot of people are going to be are going to benefit from it. The counter argument from the other side was only a few people are going to benefit from this. Only the few 1% are going to benefit from this. So, and I'm sure there's likely a history. So it is counterbalanced to Paul Ryan's and the other Republican statement, but it's not. I don't think that's going to be the whole story. This is what people are supposing it is, but it's not the. It's and I'm sure there's a history of stuff going on. So. I'm not inclined to believe that's all there is to it. And
well, I am
either way,
inclined
I don't think it should be done. But
yeah, I mean, I am inclined to, though, because Paul Ryan proved to us that he's party above all else when he voted for Donald Trump, despite the fact that he had no respect for him. If you want to really stand up for what you believe in, like Ted Kasich was, you wouldn't even vote for him in the first place. But Paul Ryan did that because he's a member of the Republican Party before anything else. And I feel like that's what happened here. That the priest said a prayer that was universally humanitarian and was a little bit contradictory to what the Republicans are trying to do right now. And I think he got a little scared of that, and hence forcing him to resign this way. So that's what's really frustrating to me.
I mean, that's you're guessing why Paul Ryan voted the way he did, and you're guessing that this is all it is, and I'm saying I'm not going to take a guess at it. It sounds really bad, but for all I don't think I would have bothered with that if I was in Paul Ryan's place, unless the chaplain was actually going around and stealing everybody's pocket change. You know what I mean? So, which I doubt not likely is happening, but again, we don't know. But it's just this story is just a couple hours old, so it. Yet to be developed until next week, I guess.
Sure.
So.
Well, I mean, I think both y'all making good points with that. I mean, because I would like to see an unedited video of it, just to make sure that wasn't just taken out of context, like an innocent part, and then there wasn't damn you McConnell and damn you Ryan, that kind of thing. I doubt it, but I'd like to see the whole thing.
Again, it's somebody's guess that this is what it is. Nobody has said this is officially why he was out.
And also, but there was so I work for Pasadena Weekly as well, a newspaper, and there's a church in Pasadena called All Saints Church. It's Episcopal. It's the nation's leading liberal or progressive Christian church, and they had a huge controversy like 8 or 10 years ago. It was after the 2008 election. Basically, their rector emeritus, the last official pastor or whatever, who had retired, he sometimes would give sermons, and his sermon one week was imagining a debate between Jesus and I forget who it was. Jesus was moderating a debate between McCain and Obama, or Bush and Kerry. That's what it was, Bush and Kerry. And so all the questions, though, were loaded completely. I read the text of it myself. I mean, they hand it out every Sunday at this church, and everything was like completely weighted against Bush and the war and all this. And so Jesus said this then, didn't I tell you, don't make a war, don't be a peacemaker, blah, blah, blah. So what do you say? And it's like, it was so biased, and I was adamantly against the war myself. I marched in the 2003 big LA march. But what I'm saying is that they got in trouble with the IRS. Somebody reported them, and they had this huge battle about being too partisan at the pulpit. But all the churches from the most conservative evangelical organizations to the fellow liberal churches, all of them stood by them and said that we can't limit the political speech in a prayer because they said that it was, or they were defending them against losing their tax-free status.
Right, sure.
And so I don't know if this is a similar parallel thing, but
well, no,
I mean,
it's not a tax status. But I'm just saying, I'm looking at the NBC News headline. Members of both parties have expressed outrage about the move and hinted it could be tied to a. So nobody knows. They're just guessing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds bad, but I don't want to make any judgment until there's more information, and we may never know. But
I mean, I'm sure that you're right that more is going to come to light. But all I'm saying is that if it is true that it was just about this prayer that we quoted earlier, where a priest is just praying for the government to be what it should be for people. Then that's unacceptable, and that's the frog boiling right there.
That I agree with. That's a little bit petty.
And he was calling for balance.
I'm being very facetious about saying a little bit, but so anyway. But we got a whole bunch of other things to talk about.
Yeah.
But we know more stuff about.
Well, sure, but I just want to say one last thing. I'm sorry, I just remembered my other part of the point with that was that even as I was writing an article about the important battle to preserve independence of the pulpit, I still was like, when I was on their side personally, I still was like, just going, come on. When I interviewed the guy, I said to his face, I'm like, there's no way you didn't know this was trouble. And it was disingenuous to think you're not going to get into some sort of trouble sometimes, too. But I think this was much less pointed and partisan than that particular sermon was. So, anyways, okay, so then another thing, you found a juicy one, Tanya, about a lawyer in Brooklyn who found his own way to protest global warming that I think is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, right around tax day, this guy decided. He's well known. His name is David S. I just lost
Apparently
his name.
That well known.
I want to say Buckley, but it's Buckle. It's Buckle.
Yeah.
But he actually was well known in the last decade or so for fighting for gay rights and equality and gay marriage in primarily in Iowa and New Jersey. So he's of New Jersey, and he then got involved once he left the lawyer scene, as it was. The lawyer world, as the articles keep saying, he got really deeply and personally involved in the environmental causes, and he actually called himself or people called him, I don't think he called himself that, but people called him the king of compost. He was really big into this neighborhood urban farming area, and so he got really into composting and recycling and fossil fuels and stuff, and the damage to the world via pollution, and that was left in his suicide note. So his statement was he was trying to make a statement by destroying himself with fossil fuels. He used gasoline or kerosene or something to douse himself and burn himself like at 1 a.m, something like crazy like that in a park near his home, and left a suicide note in a grocery cart nearby, so I guess it didn't burn up with him. Right? So, he was thinking. And people noticed that, the weeks before he killed himself, he was kind of like teaching an urban farm and all that stuff in the neighborhood. So he's kind of like passing off, make sure he's got his ducks in a row. What's weird to me about this, other than the fact that he killed himself, is that his purpose was to actually bring more awareness about what we're doing to ourselves with fossil fuels. But the Pope Francis has already been on the case with this. You can't get more PR than the Pope telling the world that they need to be aware of the environment and global warming. So I don't know that this made that much of a dent in terms of people's awareness. So it's kind of confusing to me on why he burned himself alive. But, very strange that he got so wrapped up into it that he felt he should use his death as a way, as a good example as well as living. That was kind of his statement.
I mean,
I don't know. Go ahead.
I don't even, it's like, okay, so if you're upset with like all the pollution, set a fire burn yourself.
and put out more
Makes a
carbon
lot
in
of
the
sense.
world.
Yeah. He just unleashed more carbon.
And he burned the grass underneath. I mean,
I guess, at least he's, going to do his part for composting. They could just...
I don't mean to be macabre about this, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
It's just so stupid.
No, you make a great point, Tanya, too, that there's so many better ways and better platforms that you could try to get his point across. But by doing this, everyone's just like a smooth move, psycho, and then like they'll think that for a week, and then no one will remember him.
We're being so very. I know it almost feels like to me, and I'm not trying to be judgmental, but it just sounds like he saw himself as way more important than he should have in that moment to do that. I mean, like the Pope was already on the task. We already got spanked by the Pope last year about global warming. I think it's very clear we're aware of whether you choose to follow it or not, to go along with environmentalism. But I think there's an extremism, almost like this, like he was a Buddhist monk, that sort of, had a protest self-immulation there. So. Yeah.
On the plus side, though, if you're the kind of person who bets money on the Darwin Awards, we got a really strong candidate this year.
Although I don't know I think he adopted a daughter with his partner, so I don't know if he was actually intending to keep the DNA in the world, but yeah, I just don't get that. I don't get that extreme.
That's what makes it even worse when you have a family that you're leaving behind. It's selfish.
That's kind of sad. I mean, I feel bad for the little lady because she's lost a parent. So that's not. And then to do it by suicide is kind of tough, But they chose to do it. That's a hard thing to overcome. But anyway, so that was. It was such a strong statement that both Michael and Carl did not even know about this lawyer. That's how much of an impression this guy made. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, way to go, buddy.
That wasn't the best option, I don't think. But anyway, so we were going to talk about who's the other person that we were all chit chatting about.
Well, Alice Cooper, you brought up that Alice.
Yeah, we also talked about Apu.
Oh, Apu. Yeah, let's get to Apu. Yeah. Speaking of, because that is the part of the world where people do.
I'm cussing when I say Apu, but it's not right.
Well, Apu it comes from a part of the world where there are more of these kinds of burnings on occasion. So.
I totally understand.
So Apu is one of the longtime beloved characters on The Simpsons, who is a convenience store worker, and basically Hank Azaria is one of the cast member who has been playing Apu throughout the nearly 30 years of this series. It's amazing, and but now all of a sudden, after almost 30 years, somebody decided that they were really just too offended by Apu and how dare a white guy play him that now there's this whole big wave of people saying, oh, we need to get rid of this cartoon character that people have been already dealing with for 30 years. And so Hank Azaria is offering, either has he flat out offered to resign or just saying he'd consider it or what, but he's basically feeling like, I better get out of playing it.
Well, yeah, the backlash started after comedian Harry, I hope I'm saying his name right, Kandabalu, I think that's how you say it. He's a popular comedian from India, and he came out with a documentary on True TV called The Problem with Apu. And in it, he explained about how being somebody from India, this stereotype really hurt him growing up. And he gathered other comedians of Indian descent, and they all agreed with him. Like, yeah, this stereotype was really hurtful to me as I tried to make my way in the world, and it was something I had to deal with a lot. And
that and Joe Biden's words, that didn't help. You guys don't know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't get the.
No, he is. I forgot how many years ago. This was during when Obama was president, so it wasn't that long ago. But he says, you just can't walk into 7-Eleven without hearing a strong Indian accent.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I just fed that all deal. He doesn't get punished because he's
Joe Biden.
So, but yeah, that's when did his book come out? It was just last month or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
The comedian.
Oh,
Do you know Michael?
Oh, Harry Condal. I'm not sure. I know that the documentary that he made, I think it came out November of last year.
November.
It's pretty
last
recently,
year. Okay.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, I understand